What's up, guys? This is Luke. Throw me your questions. As far as the touring thing goes, it's kind of up to Darren at this point. I'm definitely hoping that we do, just because I love playing live. So I don't know, depending on how he feels about it. Supposedly everyone's just kind of waiting to see how the album's going to do, and it's really kind of out of my hands. But when it does happen, I'll definitely be stoked on it. So as far as how I got involved with the band, Darren, somebody had contacted him like 4 years ago, a Sleep Terror fan, I guess, and told him to check me out. And the next thing I knew, I got a message from him on MySpace, and he's pretty convinced on hiring me for it. So I checked it out and I liked it a lot. And kind of the rest is history from there. I have a solo on pretty much every song on the record except for the 2 or 3 that were written before I had joined, which are the obvious God Amongst the Waste and Dead and Still in Pain and Under the Autumn Low. So those 3 songs I don't have a solo, and that's all Darren, and I believe James did a solo on Under the Autumn Low. So every other song I have at least 1 or 2 solos in, including the bonus tracks, Wake Up Dead and the Malevolent Creation cover. So, and you'll know it's me too. I mean, we all have very distinct style. James is a very polished, he tends to use the trem a lot more. I don't. My style is just a little bit different. You'll know, but we're all melodic. We're all tasteful in our own way. We just have a different sound, and I think a lot of people who are familiar with each of us individually as guitar players will know who's who. Hopefully, they have the credits listed on there and stuff, just to have that in stone. So as far as what bands I would like to tour with, obviously Meshuggah, just because they're not only on the same label, but they're my all-time favorite metal band. Unfortunately, I'm not really excited about a lot of modern metal bands, so I'm still listening to the same stuff I've been listening to 15, 20 years ago, and I would definitely say bands that are still around that I really like would be Meshuggah. And as far as other metal bands, I mean, I really like the new Dying Fetus record. I mean, I like their older stuff a lot more, but I was kind of impressed. It seemed like they kind of came back and hit it pretty hard, and I would love to tour with a band like that. If Cryptopsy were still good, I would definitely say them, but who knows. As far as my favorite Death album, I would definitely say Individual Thought Patterns. Everything they put out from Human and On I loved, which is kind of funny because Darren is kind of the opposite. He likes the older stuff, and I like it too, but I'm definitely more of a fan of the fusion jazz incorporations and the style they kind of had from Human and On. But I think Individual Thought Patterns, it was them in their prime, and just the lineup on that record alone, Gene Hoglan and all those guys. Andy LaRocque, I love his solos. I wish the production was better on it, but you know, what can you do? I mean, it's early 90s, you know, extreme metal, and so hopefully they make a remaster of it, but we'll see. A lot of people ask why the album has taken so long, and I honestly can't answer that because I don't know. All I do know is that, you know, it's basically when you have a situation where, you know, 4 different guys live in different areas, and, you know, I know that James and Darren were kind of bouncing back and forth between studios and different places, and you know, it's just one of those circumstances where, you know, everyone's running on different schedules and things like that, and you know, I mean, I know Tim has been busy with, you know, touring with different bands. Darren obviously is, you know, a family guy and has been very busy with CKY, and that's kind of his you know, that's been kind of his primary job, and I'm sure all those things are big factors. Me personally, I don't really know or have been involved in why it took long. You know, my job is basically, you know, laying down the solos I did when I flew there, and I did that in a matter of 2 days. So, you know, I could have did that right when I joined, but it just kind of happened later. I mean, that's just the way it ended up. I don't know why, but I'm just glad it's done, and I'm really excited that it's a week ahead to come out. So, my favorite song and riff on the album, God, you know, I would have to say, ironically and typically speaking, my favorite song is God Among the Waste, because I love that chorus. I love Darren's voice on all the songs, but I love, you know, anytime I listen to music, I'm always trying to, you know, I'm always looking for the hairs on my arm to rise up, and that feeling of butterflies in my stomach, and that song really gives it to me in terms of the epic melodic qualities, and it's very catchy. I like the structure. I like the bridge a lot, which is ironic why I mentioned, because I don't have any part in that song in terms of guest, you know, or lead work or anything like that. So, favorite riff. God, I don't know. I mean, there's so many really awesome riffs in there. I think that's kind of what Darren is known for. I mean, he's a great rhythm guitar player, and I'll have to come back to that one. But not a fan of Odious Mortem, but I do really like Decrepit Verse first record. I'm not really, you know, a big fan of anything after that, just because I'm not. I was more of a fan of their approach to really brutal death metal without solos, and that's kind of why I liked bands like Disgorge, and they're amazing musicians, and they're doing really well. I'm proud of them and stuff, but as far as the style they kind of embraced after And Time Begins, I'm not. I just never could get into it. Is there going to be a vinyl release? That I have no idea, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was going to be. Supposedly the pre-orders for the CD have done really well, so and to be honest, I'm not really, I don't even think I've owned a vinyl since I was like 7 or 8, so I couldn't say. I'm not really too familiar, hip to that stuff, so I would probably ask one of the dudes from Nuclear Blast that one. Favorite guitar brands? I've actually strangely become a big fan of Schecter, particularly the Hellraiser guitars. One of my favorite guitars I've owned yet has been the Hellraiser C8, the 8-string model. And I kind of just got into those when I started touring with All Shall Perish. Ben let me use his Hellraiser, and it was just, I really loved how light it was, never broke a string. And not that I ever really breaking strings before, but just a very durable, cool guitar. I used to be a fan of Jackson's, but I'm really have grown to hate the trem or floating bridges because I don't never use them, and so I've done without those. And until Jackson will make a dinky or something, or a soloist without one, that would be awesome, but I don't see that happening soon. Plus, I do necessitate an 8-string just because I write different stuff. A lot of the newer Sleep Terror stuff has an 8-string incorporation, so but for Whirl Under Blood, yeah, it's all 6-string. Kind of hoping we can get some kind of endorsement through Schecter, but I know there might, unfortunately, I think there's some other brands that we're kind of limited to, so we'll see. My favorite guitarist, there's so many, but definitely Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen kind of did it for me when I would say 10 or 11. I mean, those two were just my heroes, and that will forever be ingrained in me, those two guys. Of course, Jimi Hendrix and Tony Iommi. I was a huge Sabbath fan since I was a kid. I like Diego Sanchez from Discord just because he kind of got me into the whole 8-note, fast-picking death metal stuff with hyper blasting and things of that nature, that whole California death metal thing. I like John Lavasseur from Cryptopsy, mainly the stuff he did on their first 4 records. As far as like guitar hero type of dudes, obviously Yngwie Malmsteen. Al Di Meola, I just saw him about a month ago. It was incredible. Paco de Lucia, he makes me shed tears because I know I'll never be as good as him. There's so many, but like I said, as far as the touring, I would love to tour the world over and over again. I love this music. I would never be involved with a band I'm not a fan of the music of in the first place, and I really like Darren's songwriting and his voice, and I like him as a friend and a person, and I would love to tour the shit out of this record, but that's not up to me, so Seth Putnam. Well, I'm not happy when anyone passes away. I don't know. I did see him live once. I kind of looked at him in the same light as Donald Decker from Anal Blast. They were kind of their thing was kind of a gimmick, but they did what they did, and I admire people who continue doing that. Doing what they like, playing what they like, and it sucks that he's dead. I don't like seeing anybody pass away at such a young age. I was never really a fan of the music or anything, but yes, of course I'm a Death fan. As far as being a CKY fan before the project, I'll be honest and say no. The only reason that name kind of jogged my memory was from I remember my friends were fans of the show and watched it all. They had all the DVDs and stuff, and I honestly never really caught on to it. And then once I had started listening to it after I met Darren, I really enjoyed it, particularly the first record. But I also like the second. First album I've ever owned. God. I want to say Steely Dan, the greatest hits. Actually, maybe Billy Joel, one of Billy Joel's greatest hits records. Or it could have been Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. One of the three of those. And I don't regret it at all, because I still worship that. Yeah, the Sleep Terror record is coming out around September. And this is not a label-funded band, unfortunately, so this is going to be a self-release thing. I consider it the first album because the last one was just a piece of shit, and the label did nothing for us. They're ripped off fans, and they didn't, give us a budget to do a good recording. It's basically a bedroom album I made, and I didn't like it. I actually like the demo versions of those songs better anyway. So, to me, I consider the one that I'm releasing this September or October at latest. It's going to be called Uni Hemispheria, and to me, that's going to be the real first album. I'm very proud of it too. Sweet picking, honestly, I try to not practice that very much. I think it's really important to zone in on perfecting alternate picking before anything. I'm not one of those guitar players that ever put sweet picking before anything. I always prioritize alternate picking and chord progressions and things like that. Putting the fingers to work and giving them a run for their money. I think sweet picking is a great technique to apply, but I think a lot of guitar players just spend too much time trying to perfect it, or basing all their lead work around it. They end up, their alternate picking technique suffers, and I'm kind of known for my alternate picking technique, with the metal that I play, and I'm proud of that, and I'd rather, keep my chops up in that way. Someone asked me about keeping chops up. Personally, I just think, for me, it came from just years of sitting in my room with a metronome, and even to this day, I'll still go, sometimes I'll get really lethargic and go a while without playing, and it'll come back, after I sit down for a couple days again, just because it's just a muscle memory thing, when you burn yourself out or something for a while at a younger age, it stays with you forever, and I'm proud of that, and I think that's kind of why I have, what I have, knock on wood. But tips for up and coming bands as far as playing out, recording. The scene has just gotten really bad all around. It's very difficult now to, everybody and their dog has got a band, and it's really, the competition's very high. Unfortunately, a lot of the time it's who you know. It's not about how good your music is, it's about politics. I know here in Seattle it used to be a lot easier to get gigs and stuff, and I think if your music's really good, you will be discovered, and you will go far to whatever extent. But unfortunately, it's really hard to say. The best you can do is just network I think MySpace was excellent for that. I'm not really sure how well Facebook is doing for bands. I know for me it's been frustrating on Facebook because when I started out, with Sleep Terror, I remember the hype got really big on MySpace, and it really helped our live shows and the draw. And I actually booked a full tour on my own just through MySpace itself. And now that that's kind of died down and Facebook's a new thing, it's been really, I've kind of felt like I've been in a dark cloud lately with that. And but I do think networking, being friendly with all the bands who have a similar style as you around the city you live in, and coming together and setting up shows and stuff like that. As far as recording, there's so many options now. Kids are recording albums in their basement and stuff. Favorite non-metal bands. I'm pretty much a metalhead who is a non-metalhead at the same time. I grew up listening to Billy Joel, Elton John, George Michael, Tears for Fears, Phil Collins, Genesis. But I would say probably my all-time favorite non-metal band, definitely Depeche Mode. But I am also a big Smiths fan, Morrissey and stuff. Darren picks on me a lot for that, but I could still be a straight guy who likes a lot of gay music. I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. So. I don't use any distortion or effect pedals. Right now I actually am using the Roland GR55, but I don't know if I'm going to use that for World Under Blood. But I've never really been an effect pedal person. I've always had, for a while I was using the Roland VG88. We just go into a preamp and a power amp and the whole thing, and I usually like to have everything compacted into one unit as far as effect pedals and effects in general. As far as John Petrucci, he's obviously a legend of a guitar player, but I've never really got into Dream Theater, and his playing in general just never really kind of tickled my pickle in the same way as the first couple records Yngwie Malmsteen did, or I'm kind of, as a musician, I have things that really excite me in music and playing stylistically, and it doesn't mean that just because I don't like something that is bad or anything. It just means that it doesn't really do anything for me like it would most people. Marty Friedman, a lot of his solos, especially in the Cacophony and early Megadeth stuff, was, to me, it really just reached in and grabbed me from the inside, and that's kind of what I look for in guitar playing and soloing. And John Petrucci is just an incredible guitar player, but I never really got that. I tried really hard, but it just never really did anything for me. Being from Seattle, have I heard of Minus the Bear? Yes. They actually played, I worked part-time at a restaurant. They actually played there in a tent once. I think it was like a year or two ago. I know, the only thing I remember is I didn't like their music, and but they had a lot of hot chicks come out to see them, so kudos to them. What do I think of the music industry now? It's garbage. Kids don't appreciate the packaged CDs anymore and artwork. I remember when I was 10 years old, I would call the music store every day waiting for Faith No More, the Angel Dust record, to come out, and I remember that feeling I had when I walked in there and I saw the cassette tape and that cover, and the touch of it, is something. It's really indescribable, that feeling. And now everything's digital and kids download stuff, and whether they're paying for it or not, it's still just it doesn't matter. It's just the fact that it's a different feeling. There's no nostalgia anymore about holding a record, and looking at it and appreciating it. Yes, I am a very big fan of Mike Patton, but I would say more or less up till about 2002. I think after the first Tomahawk record, that was kind of when I lost interest. I tried pretty hard to get into all the new shit he's done, Peeping Tom, and there's definitely select tracks here and there that I like, but I think he's, to me, Patton was in his prime all through the F&M and Bungle years and stuff. So, and those bands I've been a fan of since I was 9 or 10, and nothing's changed. I still love it. Dubstep mixed with metal, God, I really don't know what to think of that, just because I can't pinpoint that. I don't really know. I would have to listen to what you're talking about. I don't really know. You mentioned Korn. I really liked Korn's first 2 records. Another thing Darren ridicules me for, but I mean, my musical taste is jumping all over the place, but I don't know who Skrillex is, so like I said, I don't know if I can answer that. I don't even know what dubstep is, which is even more sad. But again, someone asked me, I couldn't really finish that, about the music industry. I just think it's harder to get shows now. Everything's becoming pay to play, especially here in Seattle. Like I said, I mean, it was butter getting gigs here when Sleep Terror started, and now that I kind of been when I've distanced myself from the scene a little bit, and I just noticed that less people come to shows. Kids are more broke, or they're just not as interested in music anymore as they used to be. And the 21 and up thing never helps, because being in a metal band, the greater part of your fan base are kids. They're under 21, and that's never a good thing. And that a lot of all ages venues here have kind of closed and opened back up and closed again, and but it seems like here now it's turning into LA, where everything's how many tickets can you sell and you get a better slot kind of thing. It doesn't matter how good your music is. But I think in a karmatic sense though, I think if your music is really good and you have something to offer, there will be a place for you, and people will respect and hear you. It just takes some time. For some, it takes a lot more time than others. So to be honest, I didn't contribute much at all to the writing of the album. I just I wrote my solos, obviously. I mean, I came in and that was all me. But I mean, me and Darren has asked me to write, and I have sent him a couple songs, and like any good musician, Darren's picky just like I am, and he had some contingencies with certain things or certain riffs or whatnot, and nothing really made it onto the record. But definitely on the next record, there obviously, I mean, I write. That's what I do. I'm not just some guitar player who does leads and one-off stuff like that. I am a writer. I put myself as a writer before a guitar player. I mean, I've been that way since I picked up the guitar. So I'm not just some dude who I'm not a drummer where I just, I play drums on a record, but I don't create. I'm a creator, as well as a guitar player, and I'd love to be involved in the writing process. So I think that will kind of just tell, that will kind of, if that happens, it'll definitely be on the next record. Favorite venue to play at? God, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I've played so many venues, I can't really remember all the terrible ones and all the great ones offhand, but I really liked the House of Blues in Chicago. The food was great. I loved the privacy of the curtains. As far as soloing, improv, and usually, I mean, I think for any musician, I think your ears and your heart are your greatest assets in terms of your playing and your approach and your writing. And for me, that's definitely the case. But I don't analyze anything. I spend enough time analyzing theory and chords and notes and key signatures and stuff when I was younger. When I was like 13 or 14, I got really obsessed with that stuff, and it definitely helped. But I think after a while, you just kind of break away from that, and you take a lot of the fundamentals, and it kind of becomes a muscle memory, second nature type of thing, where it comes out of you. And but I mean, I always know what key. When I recorded these solos, I would listen to the parts. James would loop them once or twice. We just go right to the sections where the solos would be, and I would just listen to it once or twice, get a feel for it, and then I'd start tracking it. And a lot of it was improv. I never really sit down and write solos out. I always kind of record them on the spot, and that's just how I do it. But I always know the chord changes and what key the song's in. I mean, that's kind of a given. That's why I think knowing theory, or at least the fundamentals of theory, is very important. I don't think you could ever be a fulfilled musician unless you at least have some kind of grasp on that. So I think the production on the World Under Blood record's great. I will say, aside from the fact that I think the production is amazing, the guitars are just perfect. The tonality of the guitars, the drums are just very incredibly heavy, and you can hear every little detail. I am just a little bit disappointed in the way Wake Up Dead turned out, and it's not because of the production. It's just the nature of the cover of the song. It just, when I listen back to the original, I loved the reverb and the dark, haunting quality of that original song, and the solo tone, and just the guitars. They just sounded like they're being played in a chapel or something, and it's really dark, and the bass tone stood out, and it just seems like that quality is definitely not there in the cover, and it's almost kind of more of a dry, slowed down, less ballsy approach, more of a polished approach. And it's not bad, it's just, my honest opinion, I'm not particularly happy with the way that the Wake Up Dead cover turned out. But as far as the production, I think it's stellar. I think James is the man. He did an incredible job, and I think it's definitely worth how long it took too, for whatever, jumping to different studios or whatever the case was. It came out perfectly, and I think especially he did a great job. And considering that some of these songs were recorded in different places with different gear, he made them all sound like they were done in the same place, and that's, that's almost inhuman. Yeah, I had a lot of fun playing in All Shall Perish. There's always difficulties, sharing a van or a bus and kind of living with having to deal with the bad sides of, 5 or 6 guys. But it was definitely worth it. But unfortunately, in that, a lot of that, I had more fun in Europe when I was with them. But U.S., I've already toured the U.S. so many times where, you've seen it all, and it can get boring after a while, especially in the winter time. All of us were getting sick more often, and icy roads, and a lot of bullshit, and I just I think it was kind of enough for me. I just wanted to focus on my own music, and but I had a blast playing with them on stage. But being a lead guitar player and being known for more technical, polished music, I didn't have like the most ecstatic time on stage. I was kind of like the villain guitar player guy, and or at least with World Under Blood, my lead work can shine, and I'm not just some dude playing chugga riffs over and over behind some other guy shredding his balls off and getting all the respect. And that's kind of how the All Shall Perish thing went. But it was a great experience, and I had a lot of fun. Darren was very during the recording process, he was very happy and very accepting of everything I did. We never disagreed on anything. James being the engineer, of course he would, if something wasn't clean enough or something could be done better, he would call me on that and tell me to redo it, which was a good, obviously any engineer has to do that if they care enough about the music. But Darren was actually really laid back and loved everything, and which I'm, glad for. But Darren just very, from so far, I think he's just really easy to get along with in general. He's picky, but any great genius musician is going to have that quality, and that's a good thing. But he's not difficult to work with at all. He liked everything that I did, so I'm thankful for that. If I had to play a cover song, in a metal sense, that's hard to say, because I think most non-metal songs should never be turned into metal songs. But actually, the one that I would always love to cover, we already did, and that was Wake Up Dead, which is ironically my favorite Megadeth song. It has always been. But I don't really want to cover. I don't really think it's a good idea to cover any song if it can't be done better or differently than the original. So I don't really know the top of my head what I could do justice to at this point, or if I'd want to replicate something in a metal sense, at least. Being a musician is my job as a person and what I feel I'm destined to do, but it's not my job realistically or technically speaking. I think when you rely on making a living from music in this day and age, and that's your only plan, it's a very high risk, and I definitely lost that ambition a while ago. For me, my job, my real job that I have is important, and unfortunately I kind of was cynical of that attitude growing up, but it's just the reality. Not all of us can make a living from music alone. A lot of it has to do with the culture we're in. It's unfair, but people like Katy Perry and Justin Timberlake and all these clowns, make millions of dollars, while people like Al Di Meola are playing small little clubs and you know, paying their bills as their checks come in one at a time type of thing. And it's just the way, world we live in, but I'm always going to be a musician and play music and put music out there. I don't care, that's something I need to do for my own sanity. I don't look at it as a means to make money anymore, but if you can make money, go for it. Or, I didn't sign the posters, not because I didn't want to, just because I think that all came from Darren. He lives in LA, I'm up in Seattle, so I don't have anything to sign. No, I don't, or have a means to do that. If they, if I did, I would. No one's really talked to me at all regarding pre-order package material. I have not even seen the album booklet or anything like that yet. I mean, I kind of wish there was some better communication with that, but I mean, I'm a big fan of EMGs, so obviously something with those, something neck through. I really like the Schecter Hellraiser 8-string I have right now, but my dream guitar would obviously be something, with EMG style pickups, preferably ones that didn't need, batteries, 9-volt batteries. I like the neck through quality. It would be cool to have kind of like a Steve Vai style double guitar, one with a 8-string and one with a 6. That way I could, because I like to jump through, to both style of guitars. But actually, I'm a poor guy. I don't have a lot of guitars. So I actually use my Schecter 8-string. I just brought it down there, and James taught me how to do the Marty Friedman trick of tying my guitar polish cloth over the string so those lower 2 strings wouldn't buzz out or hum or anything when I was doing my solos. So yeah, I actually used an 8-string, but I only used 6 strings on it. Kind of stupid, but it worked. Sounded good. No, I've never really tried a Parker guitar. I know Darren loves them. I always love the way they look. But I kind of necessitate a guitar with 24 frets and active pickups, and unfortunately I don't think Parkers are very notorious for that. So I'm also not a fan of guitar knobs. I don't like, I think, I remember with an old Strat I had, I rerouted everything to one knob and got rid of the other 2. I hate that. It gets in the way and it's pointless. I don't like anything on an instrument that's doesn't need to be used, and that's why I don't play on trem guitars. I don't use a trem, so I had to kind of retire from a lot of the Ibanez and Jackson guitars that I used to like just because of that purpose. It was hard finding a fixed bridge guitar. But that's kind of why I'm a fan of Schecter. I like lightweight guitars that sound great, play great, and have options of fixed bridges. I think the album will be received quite well. I mean, I can't predict that, but every metalhead that I've met, and even close friends who like all kinds of different styles of metal, or probably wouldn't even like this kind of melodic metal, love it. I mean, it's everything about it. I mean, the songs are very well written. It's very tight playing. Darren's got a great voice. The musicianship on the whole record is, stellar. I think it'll do really well. Of course, there's only going to be people who, are not fans of it, or fans of a certain thing, but, can't please everybody. I started when I was 11, so I've been playing for about 18 years. I'm not self-taught. I took lessons for 2 or 3 years from when I was about 12 to 14, 15-ish. And then I just kind of went off and started recording and writing songs on my 4-track, and that was the last of the lesson thing. But I gained a lot of knowledge in those couple of years of lessons. I think if you could find a good teacher, especially if you're a metal or rock guitar player, you're a fan of that music, it's good to have somebody who's friendly with that style of music. And I was lucky because my guitar teacher was very versatile. He was basically a rock guy first and foremost, but he also appreciated and had knowledge of other styles of music. And I think that to me is the best teacher, when you have somebody who is predominantly a rock or metal guitar player, but they respect and know other styles of music, as opposed to some jazz nerd, some gimp jazz guy or classical guy who doesn't know metal or tries to wing it and stuff. You might gain a lot of knowledge from classical or jazz, but it still kind of limits you. No, the Latin style kind of just came from just listening to that style of music and records, and kind of a feel-based thing. As with anything, like my guitar teacher mostly helped me build my chops and my theory knowledge and stuff, but I never, as far as playing that type of stuff, I don't think it can be taught. I think it has to come from inside, and having a good set of ears and a feel for stuff, especially with funk music. And I've never heard of Christian Alstam, if that's how you pronounce it. Who has influenced my playing the most? I hate saying it, but I want to say Yngwie, unfortunately, because I think he already gets enough hype as it is, but he really, since I was 14, I picked up the Rising Force record. It was kind of like a permanent curse on me, as a lead player at least. Rhythmically, there's so many. I couldn't really pinpoint one. Any tips for bands about to hit their first national tour? Yeah, I would say try your best to do contracts with the promoters or the venues that you're playing at, because we were lucky, when with Sleep Terror, when I booked it on my own, we only had maybe 1 or 2 places that fucked us on money or anything else, but it definitely doesn't hurt. If you're doing it, if it's a DIY situation, make sure you trust, or you have some kind of communication going on with the promoter or the venue. But it's usually up to the promoter to make stuff come together and to pay you and to make sure you're happy. Alright, so I think I'm going to peace out here. I appreciate you guys coming on here and asking questions and stuff, and your support for the music and for both Sleep Terror and World Under Blood. And I'm very excited to be a part of this band, and be alongside a guy like Darren, who's very, very successful and very creative individual. I can't really speak too much right now for Darren or Tim or Risha. I haven't really talked to them in a while, but I'm very excited for this record. James Murphy did a great job engineering. The last rig I was using was a Rocktron Prophecy into a I think it was a Behringer power amp, and Sonic Maximizer, and I was controlling that with my Roland VG88. But now I kind of just now I'm just using a Roland GR55, and I'm going to be possibly using that through a PA setup type of thing. I'm trying to do away with cabinets and rack setups, so usually with EQ settings I kind of like keeping the bass between 5 to 8, the mids about halfway, and the treble about 3 o'clock. But this can differ, it just depends. But that's kind of, that's usually my automated preference. I think self-made shirts are fine as long as they're not selling them or making a profit out of them. I've seen a lot of people. I remember when I was in All Shall Perish, I remember Dave even said when he was been touring with his other band, he sees people wearing Sleep Terror shirts that we didn't even make. They made their own, and I thought, well, fuck, I mean, it's promoting the band. As long as they're not making them, in bulk and selling them, I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of cute. I don't recommend it or anything, but I'm not against it. I have other things to worry about. That's how I feel about making merch and stuff like that. I don't mind it, really. Alright guys, appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. And definitely buy the album when it comes out. Tactical, July 26th. And hopefully it is sunny where you are, because it's not in Seattle.